folks, how's it going? Today I'm going to talk to you about one of the anime reboots that you've probably never seen. We've all heard of Sailor Moon, classic 90s show, Heisei Retro, yada yada, yada yada. But how many of you heard of the 2014 reboot Sailor Moon Crystal? A retelling of the most loved stories and moments from the Sailor Moon series, except without the god-awful pacing at times. Let's get into it. Now, I am only going to be talking about Season 1 of Sailor Moon Crystal, which is like the introduction to Sailor Moon, to the rest of the Guardians, the Cats, Tuxedo Mask, and the first story arc of the series. Seems like a lot, but we can get through it. Set in 2010's Tokyo, the story starts with our introduction to Usagi Tsukino, a clumsy yet kind character who suffers from poor grades at school. However, upon finding the Black Cat Luna, Usagi's life turns upside down and she becomes a magical superhero girl Sailor Moon and combats her first enemy with relative ease. We are also introduced to Mamoru Chiba, also known as Tuxedo Mask in this episode, and thus the slow burn romance of the series begins. Over the next few episodes, Usagi and Luna find out there are more Sailor Guardians around them and recruit them to their cause. Through this, we see the quiet and intelligent Ami become Sailor Mercury, the spiritual mystical Rei becomes Sailor Mars, and the kind and strong outcast Makoto becomes Sailor Jupiter. Luna reveals that the team are gathered to search for one thing, the legendary Silver Crystal, a gem of incredible power that the Sailor Guardians are tasked with guarding from the wrong hands. The other task they have is to protect Princess Serenity from the Moon Kingdom, but we'll come back to that later. However, if you haven't gathered, the Sailor Guardians aren't the only ones searching for the legendary Silver Crystal. All of these enemies the gang have encountered so far are also looking for it. What for, I hear you ask? Well, apart from the nigh infinite power the jewel can give, a group of villains known as the Dark Kingdom are trying to revive their Queen Metalia after she was sealed away by the inhabitants of the Moon Kingdom. Metalia's chief subordinate Queen Beryl and the four Dark Kings, Jadeite, Nephrite, Zoisite and Kunzite, are constantly trying to drain the inhabitants of Tokyo of their energy to both feed the Queen Metalia and search for the legendary Silver Crystal. These forces are behind all of the enemies the gang have been fighting so far, and show the Sailor Guardians that they are fighting a battle much bigger than they'd ever anticipated. I should also mention that Tuxedo Mask is looking for the Silver Crystal as well. Mamoru lost his memories after his parents were killed in a car crash. He had been desperately searching for answers on how to get them back, when he stumbled upon the legendary Silver Crystal and the power that he could hold. However, he does come to a realisation that keeping it safe and protecting Usagi is something he's more interested in than getting his memories back. He becomes an ally to the Sailor Guardians and is pretty chill, for the most part. It's also at this point the Sailor Guardian team is finally completed with the addition of Sailor Venus, alongside Artemis, the white cat version of Luna. But with Venus' arrival comes an absolute bombshell of lore for the Sailor Squad. You're going to need to really bear with me for this one, guys, because this shit is tough. Remember that Moon Kingdom I was talking about? Well, all of the Sailor Guardians that we see now are reincarnations of the Sailor Guardians of the Moon Kingdom. And after Tuxedo Mask falls to an attack from Kunzite, it is revealed that Mamoru is a reincarnation of the knight Endymion, who is in love with Princess Serenity. And to round everything off, Sailor Moon herself has found with Princess Serenity, who then manifests the legendary Silver Crystal with her tears to revive Mamoru. I told you, man, this shit went hard. Whilst Mamoru is being taken away by Queen Beryl to try and extract the crystal from him, the Sailor Guardians venture to the moon to try and find more answers about their past and more about the villains of the Dark Kingdom. Usagi then encounters a hologram of the original Princess Serenity's mother, who tells her that Mamoru is still alive. We also find out that the four Dark Kings were originally four knights who served Endymion. Towards the end of the episode, Queen Beryl releases Mamoru from his prison, under her control, and sends him to kill Sailor Moon. When the gang get back to Earth, Usagi is still upset by Mamoru's disappearance, but ends up encountering the mind control version of him at the arcade store. She doesn't believe it's really him, partly to introduce himself as a friend of the arcade staff, and the mind-controlled Mamoru tries to use his newly acquired hypnotic powers to find out more details about the Sailor Guardians, namely, where the Sailor Guardians HQ is. Whilst Usagi does not fall for this hypnotism, Mamoru does manage to extract this information from Makoto later on. With that, the Sailor Guardians HQ is breached by Mamoru, accompanied by Queen Beryl. Queen Beryl reveals to Sailor Guardians that Mamoru is completely under her control, while Sailor Venus explains to everybody that Beryl is under Metalia's control, as she was also in love with Endymion but murdered him at the Moon Kingdom out of jealousy. Using the sword that Sailor Venus got from the moon, yeah, they brought back a fucking sword by the way, Sailor Moon breaks the necklace that gives Beryl her powers from Metalia, killing Beryl in the process. However, that does not mean the fight is over yet. In fact, it has only just begun. Metalia makes Mamoru steal the sword. Usagi then chases Mamoru through a portal which ends up in the North Pole, for some reason. While the two are having a confrontation, the remaining 4 Sailor Guardians are forced to fight the 4 Dark Kings, who are still under the control of Metalia. Whilst the Guardians do get them to remember their past life, and that they're not supposed to be fucking evil, Metalia just straight up kills them anyway. Usagi also fails to bring Mamoru back to normal using her powers, so she takes a sword, stabs him, and then kills herself with it. What the fuck? Like, this is metal as fuck, but what the fuck? Like, some of the stuff the show does is straight out of Romeo and Juliet, especially the whole Endymion Serenity thing, considering that cross-Moon-Earth relations were forbidden during the time in the Moon Kingdom. Anyways, moving on. After Mamoru and Usagi die, their bodies are sucked into Queen Metalia. Don't ask questions, this shit just sorta happens. This leaves the rest of the Sailor Guardians to fight Metalia, but they're fighting a losing battle. However, when all hope seems lost, the Sailor Guardians sense that Usagi is still alive, and they give up their life force to revive her. In the darkness of Metalia, Usagi awakens, and realises that the only reason she survived her suicide is because her skin was protected by a pocket watch that Mamoru gave her, showing her the cycles of the moon. Using the legendary silver crystal, with some help from the spirit of the 4 kings and a revived Mamoru, Sailor Moon is able to defeat Queen Metalia, save her friends, and restore the world back to its normal state. I'll start with Sailor Moon herself. I think Usagi Tsukino is a brilliant example of a person with a kind heart who is thrust into a responsibility that she never wanted in the first place. All she wants to be is a normal schoolgirl doing normal things. Talking about boys, going to the arcade, trying not to flung contests, the lot. But she's flung it into a cross-generational conflict where she's told she is a reincarnation of a princess from a different millennia. Some people tend to get quite annoyed when Usagi decides to run away from Luna and the rest of the gang, but I'll be honest with you, I get it. She just wants to be a normal girl with a normal life. This is best shown at the end of the season, where Queen Serenity offers Usagi to rule in the newly revived Moon Kingdom. Usagi declines, wanting instead to spend a life on Earth with Mamoru. She's a very relatable heroine, and a fantastic character to boot. Mamoru is quite difficult to talk about. For the majority of Season 1, it feels like we only see the tuxedo mask persona of Mamoru, rather than what he wants as a character. True, we are treated into his personal desire for the legendary silver crystal, but upon realising that protecting Usagi is more important, he slips into more of a supporting role for the Sailor Guardians. I think the choice to make him a secondary antagonist, however, was a brilliant move. Here we see Mamoru in a whole different light. Cold, callous, ruthless, and powerful. This is the reverse of what Tuxedo Mask stands for, and it was very cool to see this manifested on the screen. Whilst Mamoru does of course go back to being a good guy, seeing all of the different aspects of his character, whether it's Mamoru, Tuxedo Mask, Endymion, or Evil Mamoru, was super cool and made the character stand out really well for me. I'm going to put the rest of the Sailor Guardians all together in this category because it just makes it a bit easier. Whilst each character is fleshed out in their own right, they all act as support for Usagi. Each Guardian is incredibly powerful, and each of their respective serious natures complement Usagi's cheerful, yet sometimes inexperienced nature really well. I think having Sailor Venus be the ringleader of them all was a great choice, as whilst Jupiter and Mars may be more magically powerful, Venus has the leadership qualities that make the Guardians a coherent team, rather than just 3 or 4 magic users that was the case when Sailor Moon was briefly leading the team at the start of the season. You know, Sailor Moon is the leader of them all in a broad sense, but of the Guardians specifically, Venus kinda has that slot, at least in my opinion. I'll also briefly touch on the villains as well. Whilst I think Metalia is honestly just a typical Doomsday bad guy, the 4 Dark Kings, as well as their origin and redemption arc, were a very good choice for the primary antagonists of the series. These guys keep showing up, they keep enacting some new unique plan to drain Tokyo of energy, and they all are a good match for the Sailor Guardians. I also think having them be the 4 Knights of Endymion was also very cool, as they both protect Mamoru when he's under the control of Metalia, as well as being with him spiritually after they are killed by Metalia towards the climax of the season. I'm personally quite a sucker for villain redemption arcs, and these guys are written really well, at least compared to Beryl and Metalia. I think this season is a fantastic beginning to the reboot of Sailor Moon. It's both full of heart-wrenching cinematic moments, but the show also doesn't forget that Usagi and her friends are just teenage girls. There's plenty of light-hearted fun, amongst the whole end of the world and double suicide drama as well. Of course, this is only the first season I've recapped today. If you'd like to see Season 2 or maybe even Season 3, let me know as well. But that's it guys, thank you very much for watching. If you liked the video, hit the like button and subscribe, it really helps the channel out. And yeah, I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.